tragedy at LaGuardia adds to the travel misery across the United States. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
LaGuardia Airport in New York is expected to reopen in a few hours from now. It's been closed since late last night after an Air Canada Express jet collided with a fire truck, killing the plane's pilot and co-pilot and injuring dozens of others, some seriously. Dramatic audio from the control tower suggests that an air traffic controller was trying to get the fire truck to stop just before it collided with the plane.
One and Company, LaGuardia Tower, requesting to cross 4 at Delta.
Truck 1 and Company, cross 4 at Delta.
Truck 1 and Company, crossing 4 at Delta.
Frontier 4195, just stop there, please. Stop. Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Delta 2603, go around, runway heading 2000. Jet 646. Jet 646, I see you collide with the vehicle here, just hold position. I know you can't move. The vehicle's there responding to you now.
Is the runway closed?
Delta 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
Heading 2000, go around, Delta 2603.
LaGuardia Tower.
Truck 32, runway 4 is closed, correct?
Yes, go on to runway 4 now. Proceed on runway 4, you have access.
Tower, car 90, runway 422 is closed at this time.
90, roger.
LaGuardia Tower, vehicle 98.
98. Vehicle 98.
Vehicle 98, please show at this time. Runway 422 is closed. I repeat, runway 422 is closed at this time.
The aircraft was a Jazz Aviation CRJ 900 regional jet. It was carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew members. The pilot and co-pilot died at the scene. 41 passengers and 2 firefighters were taken to hospital. The flight originated from Montreal. CNN's Gloria Pacino has more from LaGuardia.
You can see the front of the airplane is completely destroyed. The collision happened around 11:40 last night. This is a Jazz Aviation flight that was operating on behalf of Air Canada. The aircraft, we are told, struck a Port Authority aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle, which was actually responding to a different aircraft on the runway. This was flight 8646. It was coming in from Montreal late last night. It left Montreal around 10:30 p.m. local time and landed here at 11:40. It collided with the firefighting vehicle shortly after the landing. In fact, we heard from officials here at the Port Authority, which manages the airport. They described the moment, saying the collision happened during the landing. Now, this was a regional jet aircraft. It was traveling south, going very fast, about 130 miles just before it hit that fire truck. Now, the passengers who did not have to be transported to the hospital were actually seen leaving the airport just a short time ago. I was able to catch up with one of them. He described the moment to me, telling me that it was a hard landing and that they had no indication that there was a problem on the runway. Take a listen.
We went down for a regular landing. We came in pretty hard. We immediately hit something, and it was just chaos from there. About 5 seconds later, we had come to a stop, but in that short period, I mean, everybody was hunkered down and everybody was screaming. Pretty quickly, we didn't have any directions because the pilot's cabin had been kind of destroyed, so somebody said, let's get the emergency exit and get the door in, let's all jump out, and that's exactly what we did.
Audie, the passengers who did not have to be transported to the hospital were set up in an airline lounge. They were reunited with their family members, and as I said, many of them were leaving the airport just a short while ago. The FAA issued a ground stop here at LaGuardia Airport shortly after the incident. That ground stop has been lifted now, but the airport is closed. Officials telling us just in the last hour they expect LaGuardia Airport to remain closed at least until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The National Transportation Service Board, the NTSB, is on the ground launching their investigation. And I just have to say, the fact that the airport has to remain closed at least until the late afternoon, 2 o'clock today, is certain to cause a lot of delays, a lot of transportation issues here for passengers, which of course comes as we are seeing all these other problems, delays and long lines as a result of the partial government shutdown.
That's CNN's Gloria Pacino from LaGuardia. Until this happened, that was the travel news story in the United States, the long lines and missed flights because of the partial government shutdown in the United States. That partial government shutdown, which has been happening for more than a month, means that thousands of TSA employees are off the job. They are calling in sick. Some have quit, and they are not showing up for work. It is causing chaos at Atlanta Airport, for example, which is one of the busiest airports in the world. The wait was 6 hours. At the Denver airport, TSA workers have set up donation boxes asking for gift cards because they're not getting paid. Kaylin Valagrena works for the TSA in Denver.
We have set up donation boxes inside of the main terminal where passengers or just general public can donate gift cards. We did a call out to the public asking for specific gas and grocery store gift cards in an effort, to show our support to TSA employees through this government shutdown. This has been the first week that TSA workers haven't received their paycheck. So in an effort, we're trying to provide that support. TSA employees are still showing up to work, especially here at Denver International Airport. We've still experienced normal wait times thanks to TSA employees still showing up to work, although they haven't received their paychecks.
The partial government shutdown is also impacting other parts of the Department of Homeland Security in the United States. It also means members of the U.S. Coast Guard and Border Security Patrol are all working without pay. In Washington, Republicans are blaming the Democrats for the chaos and vice versa. Hakeem Jeffries is the House minority for the Democrats.
We never approach these things that are in front of us with respect to government funding in the context of leverage. Our approach is, what is the appropriate use of taxpayer dollars? And we believe that taxpayer dollars should be used to make life more affordable for the American people, not brutalize or kill them or violently target law-abiding immigrant families, which is what we know ICE agents have been doing.
Back in Canada, speaking on the situation at LaGuardia, the federal transport minister, Steve McKinnon, says the Canadian government is working closely with U.S. authorities as the investigation begins. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Oil prices are lower and the stock market is rallying today. The mood changes for financial markets came after U.S. President Donald Trump extended a deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Over the weekend, Trump gave Iran 48 hours to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or else he warned the United States would obliterate the country's power plants. Officials in Iran answered by saying any such strike would prompt attacks on U.S. and Israeli energy and infrastructure assets in the region. Now President Trump is saying everything is on hold for the next 5 days, with a posting on social media that says the two sides have had very good and productive conversations and that talks would continue throughout the week. This latest development, though, comes just 1 day after the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told the Sunday political talk shows in the United States, like NBC's Meet the Press, that sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate.
What we have done, there has been a campaign to using military assets to soften up the Iranian fortifications along the strait. That's going to continue until they are completely demolished. And Kristen, let me tell you, whether it's this network or the mainstream press, the American people do not have good framing what is going on here. If you were to read what is happening, and I'm sure when Senator Murphy is on, he has come out and said, we are losing the war. That is wrong. We have demolished the Iranian capabilities. Their Air Force is completely destroyed, Navy destroyed, and every day we are taking out their missiles, their missile systems, and the factories that build those missiles. And now the General Kane Secretary Hegseth are leading a campaign to destroy all the fortifications along the Straits of Hormuz.
Just to put a fine point on this, though, is the president in the process of winding down this war or escalating the conflict?
Again, they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate.
The WT oil futures were briefly trading above $101 U.S. a barrel very early this morning. But since Trump's posting on social media, oil prices are down more than 8% right now, almost $8 to $90.26 U.S. Also making the rounds of the Sunday political talk shows was Mark Rutte, the General Secretary of NATO. He told Fox News that 22 countries are coming together to implement Trump's vision for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and he defended the U.S. launching attacks against Iran.
It is crucial that the U.S. is doing this. I know the president was angry because he feels that European and other allies have been too slow. The good news here is that since Thursday, a group of 22 countries, most of them from NATO, but also Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the UAE and Bahrain, most of the other countries from NATO, coming together to implement his vision of making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free, is opening up as soon as that is possible. When it comes to the Strait, what we need to do is to work together. These 22 nations, again, most of them from NATO, but also the other ones I mentioned, to work through what is needed, when is it needed, and how we will make this together as soon as the time is ripe to get this done, to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz opens up.
There's no word on what role, if any, Canada would play in this 22-country coalition. Last week, Canada's Minister of National Defence, David McGuinty, kept ruling out any combat role for the Canadian forces, but suggested it would be willing to contribute something alongside NATO if other countries asked for help.
Iran has not been exactly the best actor in the space. They haven't been exactly the best actor with respect to their own people, particularly women. And in the region, they've been fostering terrorism and they've been seeding discord for a long time, at least 40 years. I want to be clear. Canada was not consulted in the decision to prosecute this war. Canada has not participated in this war, and Canada is not participating in this war. I said yesterday we remain open to the possibility to be of assistance to neighboring states. We're monitoring that hour by hour, day by day. But it is a very, very difficult situation right now.
In the UK today, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he's called a special meeting of what is known as COBRA. That's a very high-level type of meeting, usually called for events like terrorist attacks or other international crises. Prime Minister Starmer is calling a COBRA meeting because of the impact that this war is having on the cost of living across the UK.
With the Iran war, most people are very concerned now, not only what they're seeing on their screens in relation to the conflict itself, but also that question of how's it going to affect me and my family. And so today we're looking at the economic impact, and I am asking for every lever that's available to the government to deal with the cost of living to be discussed at COBRA. Hence, we've got the Bank of England and others there. But I want to make sure that when it comes to the cost of living, we're doing everything we possibly can at a very difficult period like this.
Again, looking at the markets right now, the WTI oil price down $7.56 at $90.67 U.S. a barrel, and stock markets higher across the board. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up about 650 points, a gain of 1.5% on the day. The NASDAQ up 1.3% today. The Toronto Stock Exchange main index is up more than 450 points. That's a gain of 1.4%. The Canadian dollar trading at 72.86 cents U.S., just slightly lower on the day. Gold futures down 4.2%, down $191 U.S. an ounce, just above $43.80 right now, U.S. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Retail gasoline prices just keep marching higher across the country. So are diesel prices as well, moving in the same direction. Gas prices across Nova Scotia now averaging $1.74 a liter. And the provincial regulator there used the interrupter clause to allow another hike to diesel prices, now at around $2.30 a liter for diesel in Nova Scotia. In most parts of Ontario, including Ottawa and the Kitchener area, gasoline prices are between $1.75 to $1.79 a liter. Diesel prices are much higher, around $2.33 a liter. In Calgary, there was actually a slight drop in gas prices in the last 24 hours, down to an average of $1.60 a liter, but diesel still more than $2 a liter. And in Vancouver, regular unleaded gasoline averaging $2.10 a liter, diesel about $2.35. I mentioned today great volatility for the WT oil price. It's traded as low as $85, as high as $101. Currently sitting at $90.78, which we'll take, but it still means oil prices are up almost 37% in just the last 30 days. Natural gas futures, I should mention, are down today as well and back below $3, $2.91 at the Henry Hub. Now, it may be the first full week of spring, but in some places, spring-like weather is hard to come by. Parts of Nova Scotia are getting hit with snow today. It's not a monster storm or anything, but still 10 to 15 centimeters expected, maybe a little more in the eastern parts of the province, closer to 20, but it's enough that some schools will be closing early today. Kind of a chilly start to today for Kitchener, but more mild weather should show up around midweek with highs on Wednesday and Thursday between 8 and 12 degrees. That's more like it. And looks like it's going to be a lovely day in Calgary with sunshine and a high of +8, which is, I will say, the warmest it will be all week. It's March 23rd. And on this date in Canadian history, in 1773, way back when, the Halifax Gazette published its very first issue, becoming Canada's first regularly published newspaper. In 1949, King George VI gave royal assent to the Newfoundland Act, clearing the way for its union with Canada, which happened 1 week later on March 31st. In 1923, Foster Hewitt announced his first hockey game on a radio station in Toronto owned by the Toronto Star. And in 2001, the founder of the Reform Party, Preston Manning, announced he would retire from politics and enter the private sector. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. We're going to talk about politics coming up right after the news. It's our Monday Newsday political panel. Just ahead here on News Radio. Time for our Monday Newsday political panel, Federal Politics in Focus. Matthew Dube is Vice President at Proof Strategies and a former NDP MP. Welcome back, Matthew. Good to hear from you.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hi there. Along with Deirdra Tindale, Vice President at Crestview Strategies in Montreal. Deirdra, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Thanks for joining us. Deirdre, let's start with you because it's been a while since you've been with us. What have you thought of the Carney government's ability to communicate what Canada's role will be and won't be in this war in the Middle East?
Don't feel like you're just in a fishbowl.
Well, I think it's kind of along the lines of what people have been saying of this government's communication style for some time. I think they had 4 different positions in the first week after the war started, which of course was confusing to follow along for the best of us. I think this really speaks to this government needing to just figure out what its narrative is going to be on a whole range of issues. But I will say that this is definitely walking a bit of a tightrope for them, because if anything could be the thing that puts a nail in the coffin of our CUSMA renegotiations with the U.S., it could be our response to President Trump wanting us to go along with the war in Iran. So I think in this case, we understand that the government would be in a challenging position, wanting to keep our friend and ally happy. But again, I think they just need to look at their communication style a bit better to actually tell Canadians what is going to happen and when and for how long.
Okay. Matthew Dube, what have you thought so far of the government's ability to communicate on this war?
Yeah, it's been all over the place, as you mentioned. We don't need to rehash all of that, but I do think it's interesting to comment on the consideration that might be given to trade conversations, and I actually think that that's going to be anathema to a lot of Canadians, and I think that that's why the first statement landed so poorly. I don't think it was just caucus pushback. I think it was a realization that there are some issues that you're responsible for as a government that are more than just trade and economy and all of those things. In this instance, we're talking about, an act of aggression of war by the U.S. administration that defies international law. That certainly flies in the face of what Canadians want to be involved with. Americans too, quite frankly, if we're to look at the polling and the public response that's happening right now. So, the wounds, both visible and invisible, of Afghanistan are still very real for Canadians. I think that there's a very acute awareness of what it entails to go into a conflict, even when there is an objective. And by all accounts, there is not a clear one in the slightest from the Trump administration. And so I think that these are the things that are going to have to start weighing on the Carney government. And I dare say that it's a time where I'm certain, I'm biased as a New Democrat, and I'm certain that I will only speak for myself on this one, but it's the kind of issue where you do notice the absence of a strong NDP caucus in the House of Commons, because otherwise everyone's kind of happy to go along with the chaos that Trump is putting forward in the Middle East. And the NDP, if you've heard their position, are very much opposed to that. And I think that that's actually, on this count, very much in line with what Canadians are thinking.
I mean, for example, Mark Rutte is the Secretary General of NATO, and he was on Fox News over the weekend and said they've assembled 22 countries to try and open the Strait of Hormuz. Let's listen to that clip again.
It is crucial that the US is doing this. I know the president was angry because he feels that European and other allies have been too slow. The good news here is that since Thursday, a group of 22 countries, most of them from NATO, but also Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the UAE and Bahrain, most of the other countries from NATO, coming together to implement his vision of making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is free, is opening up as soon as that is possible. When it comes to the Strait, what we need to do is to work together. These 22 nations, again, most of them from NATO, but also the other ones I mentioned, to work through what is needed, when is it needed, and how we will make this together as soon as the time is ripe to get this done, to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz opens up.
Okay, so again, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, and yet we hear very little from Canadian officials on what, if any, role Canada would play in that. What do you think they should be saying, Deirdra?
I think they should be very clear with Canadians, whether we're taking a position as Canada or as a NATO partner. And, regardless of whether Trump officially triggered any articles of NATO to actually get these countries to cooperate, we can leave that aside. I think the Prime Minister and his government have a responsibility to Canadians, to my point earlier, to say what our involvement is going to be and for how long, and ultimately what the cost is going to be to Canada. And I think if they want to say that we're going along with it as part of a NATO mission, quote unquote, then that's all fine and good, but they should be the ones to tell us first. We shouldn't be hearing it from other news sources.
Yeah, totally agree. What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, I definitely agree on the transparency front, that the government needs to be communicating directly with Canadians. Just in terms of analyzing what's going on here, it's pretty clear that that's what not just Canada, but many of these countries want to avoid doing, right? Mark Rutte has been given, kind of picked the short straw here and being given the role of working with the Trump administration on behalf of these NATO countries. It's not a sustainable situation. I think everyone acknowledges that. You just need to look at the price of gas. I mean, we could talk all day about the strategic blunder of the U.S. administration, how they didn't think about this possibility before they undertook this kind of action. I guess that's what happens when you govern via social media. But the reality is, I think that's everyone's kind of holding their nose on this one for sure. And I think that's why he's been sort of given this task. But to the point that you've agreed with and that Deirdre's made, it doesn't excuse or preclude the Canadian government from being clear and transparent with Canadians.
Okay, we'll be right back. Just getting started. It's our Monday, Newsday political panel. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's our Monday Newsday political panel with Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies and from Crestview Strategies, Deirdra Tindale. All right, be honest with me. Who watched all 2 hours and 23 minutes of Pierre Poilievre with Joe Rogan? That is quite a commitment if you did that. And I would congratulate the both. Deirdra, did you watch all 2 hours and 23 minutes?
I surely did.
You did? Even the UFC stuff? Even the martial arts stuff? I have no interest in that. What about you, Matthew? Did you watch it all?
I mean, I don't want to devalue my commentary on the issue, but I did not. I'm relying on secondhand accounts in the clips. Right. I can't make that time commitment. Sorry, Pierre.
I mean, it's like 2.5 hours of your life. It is a big time commitment. But Deirdre, what did you think? How did he do?
I think he did very well, and I think by all accounts, the verdict is from everywhere. That he did very well, right? And so this isn't just conservative commentators pushing the party line. This is, day 5 of this being a topic of conversation on political panels. This is people from across party lines that are saying he did well. He played it classy by saying that he wouldn't criticize the prime minister abroad. I think he showed the other side to his personality, which, like every politician, we know there is that side that exists. I think it was kind of interesting to hear him geek out a bit on kettlebells at the start of the interview. Right. But he showed that he's got more depth than talking points, right? He can engage in long form conversations, and those long form interviews typically are a better format for Pierre Poilievre to really show what he's made of.
Okay, Matthew, what do you think about at least the reaction to it then?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that he thrives in that kind of environment. And we've talked about this before, but it's why it makes you wonder why, he wasn't given more freedom and more chances to be in the media in the lead up to the last election. So that's certainly a consideration, and definitely said a lot of the right things. But there's a bit of too little too late, right? Like the reaction is positive, and I for the most part agree. I mean, but at the same time, this would have been, I think, more useful a year ago for him and for the result that he ended up facing in the election, especially on the Canada-U.S. relationship and things of that nature. And I also think that, you also have to pick your spot a little bit. Like I appreciate the audience that Joe Rogan has and everything, but I wonder who this really speaks to, if this just doesn't reinforce things that people who like him already like about him. Anecdotally, I don't have the data, but I wouldn't be surprised if even my anecdotal side is correct here. But, it's not a place, for example, it's not an audience that's made up of many women, right? And I think you look at some of the polling recently, these are the places where he needs to grow. So I think that's maybe what's missing here a little bit. Appreciate that there's a consensus around it, but it's hard to change an unfavorable perception in politics. It takes a lot of good moves.
I was wondering that too, Deirdre. And this is one of the questions I have, is it a needle mover? Does it move the needle? Or is someone who will commit 2 hours and 23 minutes of their lives to watching Pierre Poilievre on Joe Rogan already going to be more likely to vote for Pierre Poilievre? What do you think?
Well, I think at the moment we're looking at this interview in isolation, right? Which is easy to do because it's being talked about in every corner of every city at the moment. But he also recently did an interview with Peter Mansbridge, for example, on his podcast, right? He started going out and doing more media in general. And I think he's broadening the flavor of media interviews that he's giving. So it's easy to look at this in isolation and say, this is going to do nothing. But I think when we look at the cumulative effect of him just getting out and having more of these longer conversations where he can very eloquently make the points that he wants to make and get across some key areas of interest to Canadians, I think that is what is going to be the needle mover, not one individual interview per se.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Do you think this would move the needle at all for the Conservatives, Matthew?
Well, just going back to what I was saying, like I think it's positive, and I think it gives him spaces where he thrives. So in that sense, it could move the needle. But again, I think he's just in a position now where it's going to take a lot more to change perceptions. Perceptions get baked in pretty strongly among the public in politics, and I think that's a huge challenge. Seeing him perform the way he is has to make some Conservatives regret that he wasn't able to do this a year and more ago.
Okay. When we come back, we'll talk about what we're hearing from Conservative circles. They're not worried about the polls, despite being behind, in some cases, 10 to 15 points behind in some of the polls. So they plan to keep focusing on affordability issues. And maybe a few words on the NDP leadership as well when we return. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Matthew Dube is Vice President of Proof Strategies, a former NDP MP. Deirdra Tindale is Vice President of Crestview Strategies, working out of Montreal. It's our Monday Newsday political panel. The Conservative campaign manager, not that we're in a campaign, but the campaign manager says, what, me worry? Behind double digits in the polls, what, me worry? Say they're focused on the long game. They're focused on affordability. They're focused on everyday issues that are important to Canadians. What do you think about that, Matthew?
Well, I mean, it's the right thing to do. I think that their assessment of that is right. They've got strong support amongst the portion of the electorate that's most concerned about that, namely young people. So I think that's one thing that the Conservatives have been bang on about for some time now. So it makes sense to continue in that vein. I think it can still be, and you're seeing this, we were just talking about Pierre Poilievre's long-form interviews, Joe Rogan, Peter Mansbridge. He's doing a better job, I think, of balancing that remains their top issue, but also speaking confidently to the Canada-U.S. dynamic. So I think you could walk and chew gum at the same time on that front, and they're showing it. I think the biggest challenge at the end of the day, going back to our conversation earlier, is about the messenger, is that unfavorable rating that Pierre Poilievre is dealing with, is that do people still see him as the right person to address those concerns? It's great to be speaking to the issue set that matters to Canadians, but the message is only half the equation, right? You need the big right messenger as well. And I think that, that's kind of the elephant in the room for the Conservatives right now.
Right. Okay. Not so much the message, but the messenger. Deirdra, what do you think?
Well, I would actually flip that around. The question eventually will be, is the current government the right government to deal with these challenges for Canadians? And with every passing week and month, where there was another poll in the weekend that said that housing affordability will be the key credibility test for federal politicians, every passing day, week, month that this government does not demonstrate that it is actually acting on the affordability crisis that is facing Canadians, they will be the ones that will be judged at the polls. And I think it's important to remember that, right? You don't go to the ballot box judging the opposition on how well they've performed. You go to the ballot box judging the government on how well they have performed. And increasingly, we know that this government has not been able to effectively connect, these trade deals and announcements of agreements on the world stage with what that actually means for Canadians and their pocketbook.
Okay, very quick comment, if I could, from both of you, as it's down to the final innings in this NDP leadership campaign, with the winner to be revealed over the weekend, this coming weekend. Who's going to win this thing, Deirdra? Avi Lewis, next leader of the NDP? What do you think?
That seems to be where things are headed. He kind of has that celebrity appeal. And he's been able to work at this a lot longer. Some surmise that he's been kind of at this since 2021, since his tilt at a seat in Parliament. And so he's been quietly working away for some time and has had the means to do that, versus opponents such as Heather, who's also had to balance being a full-time MP, and Rob Ashton, who, is kind of the working man's candidate, but doesn't really have the profile that somebody like Avi does.
Right. What do you think? Hate to put you on the spot again, Matthew, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, that's okay. It's hard to say. What I'm hearing and led to understand is that the two front runners, Heather McPherson and Avi Lewis, have almost split, almost 50-50, the number of new members. So just for that reason alone, I know that it's always a fool's gambit to make predictions in politics, but based on what I'm hearing, that's even truer in this particular instance. But as a New Democrat, I'm looking forward to the day after for sure. I think it's time to start talking about process and riding associations, and we were just talking about affordability. Time to start talking about those things again and try to regain some ground for sure.
Okay. Great to hear from the two of you today. Thank you so much. Speak
Thanks,
soon.
Rob.
All the best. Yeah, bye-bye. Deirdra, Tindale, actually at the big energy conference in Houston right now, but normally works out of Montreal for Crestview. And Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies, former NDP MP in Ottawa today. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up next. First one of the week. Look forward to hearing from you on News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, we want to know from you, what's the big issue? You tell me, what's the big issue? It's a big picture question that we ask a few times a year. What is the biggest issue in the country right now? What is the biggest issue in the country right now? Winter is over, although in some parts of the country might not feel like it. It was minus 10 here this morning, snowed yesterday, but rest assured, I'm told it's spring. But now that winter is over and we're into the first full week of spring, what's big? What's the big issue? What should the government be focused on? Is it the war in the Middle East? Is that the big issue? I mean, it's all over the news. Hard to escape. Nonstop 24/7 coverage of the war. All the latest developments. Is it the war? Is that the big issue in the country right now? There are all kinds of Canadian angles to that story. There's everything the Prime Minister has said about it. Since it started more than 3 weeks ago, Mark Carney first said he supported it. Then he said he supported it with regret. He has insisted Canada won't be part of it, will never be part of it, but the door seems to be open to having some non-combat role to play in that region as part of some wider coalition to try and do something about the Strait of Hormuz. And over the weekend, the Secretary General of NATO was on Fox News and said there are 22 countries, most of the NATO countries, that are willing to do something to secure and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. No word on what that means for Canada. Stay tuned, I guess. So is it the war? I mean, is that the big issue, or is it something else other than the war? Like the cost of living, which is getting worse because of the war. The affordability pressures that a lot of people are facing. Is that the biggest issue in the country? The price of gas, the price of groceries. Interest rates on the rise, meaning mortgage rates could go higher. What about the rent? You know, these days the Conservatives sound like they're betting Canadians are a lot more concerned about the cost of living than they are about a war in the Middle East. If they're thinking about the war in the Middle East, it may be only because it makes the cost of living worse. I mean, it's not like that is going unnoticed. When the price of gas goes up 30%, people are going to feel that. People are going to feel that. And you can bet they're waiting anxiously to see what happens with prices at the grocery store. I mean, look at the price of diesel. All across the country, diesel prices are more than $2 in most places. In some places, they're $2.35 a liter. Think about that when you think about how much it must cost to fill all of those trucks that go rumbling down Highway 401 on any given day and all the other busy highways in the country to keep the country going. $2.35 a liter for diesel. Is that the biggest issue? The cost of living? Or is it something else? What's the big issue? What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. A recent poll from the Angus Reid Institute released just a few days ago said the Liberals, they might be enjoying a big lead in the polls right now, but they shouldn't get too comfortable because the popularity of any party that's in power usually wanes when there are cost of living pressures. And Angus Reid has what is what it calls its financial pressure index, and it shows that almost 1 in 4 Canadians are feeling very high financial pressure right now. 1 in 4 feeling very high financial pressure right now. And people who feel that way are twice as likely to vote for the Conservatives. So is that it? The cost of living? Or is it something else? Trump? Just Trump in air quotes, or tariffs and trade, the way Trump speaks about Canada, the 51st state. Now he's been calling Mark Carney the governor. Still no deal on Kuzma. Tariffs still hitting many industries from the auto sector to the steel sector, aluminum, forestry, all taking a toll on the economy. Last unemployment report from StatsCan showed more than 84,000 jobs lost in a month. Most of them full-time jobs, and most of them in the private sector. And you can bet Trump and tariffs will get a lot of blame for that. Trump has loomed large over Canada for more than a year now. So as winter turns into spring of 2026, is that still the big issue in the country? Just trying to deal with that guy down there, Donald Trump? What is your opinion? What is it in this country? It's not like there are any wrong answers to this question. What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? When Abacus Data asked Canadians a few weeks ago what they thought the biggest issue in the country right now was, cost of living was by far the most common answer, followed by Donald Trump, then the economy. But there are other issues that we can talk about. If you think it's the biggest issue, healthcare, shortage of doctors, long waits for medical services, the situation in the country's ERs, the growing popularity of private for-profit healthcare, or what some people call U.S.-style healthcare or two-tiered healthcare. Healthcare can mean a whole bunch of things. What about immigration or drug addiction or crime and public safety? What about taxes, government spending, debt, deficits, climate change, the rise of EAI, poverty, inequality, retirement issues? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is the big issue? As spring gets underway, what is the biggest issue in Canada right now? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. And tell me, hey, Rob, I think this is the biggest issue in Canada right now. And I'll say why, and then you'll explain it. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback. It's the Talkback on the big issues of the day. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's a straightforward question today. You tell us, what's the biggest issue in Canada right now? What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? The war is all over the news. The cost of living's not getting any better, in part because of the war. Worries about the economy, the healthcare system, immigration, housing, poverty, crime. I mean, a long list. 1-833-668-2577 as we go to Steve in Guelph up first this week. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Rob. How's it going today?
Yeah, very good, Steve. Thanks for calling. What do you think the biggest issue is in Canada right now?
I think the biggest thing that just hasn't really gone away is just that affordability. But primarily, I mean, it's kind of expensive everywhere you go and for everything you do. But I still think that the biggest real issue would be the affordability of housing. So not just for renting or owning or any of that, but you look at what families have to go through. You know, if you look at somebody with an average salary that may have 2 or 3 kids, that affordability has gone right out the window. I mean, it's been crazy. And I think the biggest thing is just who's going to lose from it, right? Like when you look at it, I don't think there's really a simple answer to fixing that issue at all, but who's going to lose, right? You have people who are sitting on their houses they've had for years who, aren't going to want to take a loss. You have people who are trying to break into the housing market who just simply can't afford it, or they might stay in that renting rabbit hole for a lot longer than they really anticipated. So I think the biggest thing for sure would be the housing affordability, because that has gone substantially higher from what it was 10, 15 years ago to try to support a family or any of that. So I would say that's really, I don't know how they're going to fix it. I mean, I don't know how the government can really fix that without saying who's going to lose here. Is it going to be those owners who have been in housing forever, or is it going to be the people who are trying to break in? I think at some point we're in for
Somebody's
a real
gotta
tough
lose.
conversation for somebody, right?
Right. Okay. So are you speaking from personal experience? Like, what is it? Are you going through this right now, trying to get a house, or?
I luckily have one, but I've got 3 young kids, and it's harder and harder every month to get by. And, you have a paid off vehicle, you do everything right. And it just feels like, hey, I can't really seem to get ahead here because my wages aren't keeping up with the same cost of my house plus everything else in your life, right? So that,
right.
Yeah. So for me, I think there's a lot of people out there who are struggling a lot harder than they maybe let on. But I truly think that it's really hard, especially for the younger population, to really break in, and that's going to be tough for our kids, right?
Sure thing. All right, Steve, you've got us off and running. Housing affordability, especially for young people. Linda in Airdrie is up next. Thanks for calling, Linda. What do you think is the biggest issue in Canada right now?
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Linda.
Hi. I think one of the biggest issues is that Canada needs to build refineries, and this has been talked about over a number of decades because we've got plenty of gas in the ground out here in Alberta, but we're still sending it to the U.S. to be refined and then buying it back and leaving us under U.S. control. And I really think we need to move forward and get some refineries built here so it's less of an impact on Canadians because it's certainly affecting cost of living and affordability. Our dollars just are not going as far as they used to, and it's a real struggle. You stop and you plan your weeks different. You stop and consider, can you stay at the job where you're at, depending on how far your commute is and such.
Yes. I do wonder. I do wonder if anything could be done to lower the price of gas other than the global oil price coming down. I wonder, and I've wondered this, I don't know the answer to this, if building more refineries would mean actually lower, could it mean lower gas prices for everybody? I don't know
maybe
the answer
taking the
to
provincial tax off, like a tax holiday even for a little bit until,
Sure.
Trump originally said a couple of weeks for the war. It looks like it's going to just get entrenched and continue on. It's hard to know which way that'll go, but a temporary tax holiday. I think grocers can do their part as well when you were talking about rising grocery costs, because they posted billions and billions of profit. I think there's a little wiggle room for grocers to also continue to support their communities at large.
Right. But but it comes back to these basic cost of living pressures, right? Gas prices.
Yeah.
If we had more refining capacity, could we have lower gas prices in this country? What about grocer profits? What could be done there because of the rising price of food? I'm telling you, I went and bought $200 worth of groceries just yesterday, and I got gas. That was not a happy Sunday for me. $1.79 a liter for gas and $200 in groceries. Barely 2 bags of groceries for $200. Like, it just does not go far
that.
at all. Yeah.
And I've trained my car down with a technician's help from a dealership. My car's a premium fuel, and I trained it down to mid-grade, and sometimes I'm putting in regular as well. He said it's not going to harm your engine. It's just going to slow performance a bit. And Canadians are making these hard choices just to get enough in their tanks to do their daily activities, for sure. And
I didn't even know you could do that. Oh.
I didn't either, but they told me, they let me in on a secret. So anyone out there, you can give a mix of the gasoline for a little while, fill up your premium, run it to half, fill in mid-grade, and then over time you can run it down. So it still runs just fine.
All right. Good luck with that. Thank you, Linda. Build more oil refineries in Canada, she says. And we're off and running on the Monday Talkback. What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? So much to choose from. What's top of mind for you? Hey, government, if you can fix this is the big issue. Fix this. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? The war, the cost of living, economy, healthcare, housing? Just what is it, in your opinion? Eric is in Halifax. Thanks for calling, Eric. You're on the line.
Yeah, how are you doing this afternoon, Rob?
Yeah, everything's good, Eric. Thank you. What's the biggest issue in the country right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have my deepest sympathy to the relatives or the people that up those pilots. It was I watched it on TV, and it was pretty disastrous. I think we need stability because Canada is unstable right now. They're trying to be strong, but they got to get stronger. Stop talking about separation and all that. We have to be strong, and I mean very, very strong. Stop being the weak part of the puzzle. You know, that's all I have to say on that, because when some of the things that the people have mentioned in the last couple of callers, that we got all that happening, but if we come together as one country, I think we can weather the storm.
Right. So national unity then is what you're talking about. We have separatists who want to have a referendum in Quebec again, and there could be a referendum in Alberta this fall on separation.
Yeah, that's a very good. Come united. Yeah. Show the rest of the world that we can stand on our own 2 feet. We don't need any help from anybody. And as far as the war goes, two people started it. I know the NATO's going to put 22 countries are going to back them up because they're stopping off the oil. I personally, I don't drive, so the gas doesn't affect me. As far as groceries go, I bought groceries the other day, $175, and I hardly got anything. So there's a lot of stuff happening out there, and I don't know what it's going to take. It's the $1 million question. What's it going to take? But if we come together and show the rest of the world that we can be standing on our own 2 feet, we'll be better off.
National unity. That's a good one. That's a good one, Eric. Thank you. Herman in Calgary today. Hi, Herman. What's your opinion? What's the biggest issue, Herman?
Hi, Rob. Before our caller just stole a little bit of my thunder, but on that front in the matter, we really need to consider about how we grow our economy in this country. And I mean, I've called in on this issue before. That's build pipelines. You have to have the pipelines. And let me tell you how dire it could get looking forward, Rob. Mark Carney says that we're part of the coalition of the willing when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, which means we're prepared to pledge troops to sit between the two warring parties, whether to be a ceasefire or an actual peace agreement. Well, that's Canadian boys and girls that are going to go over there and be put at risk. Wouldn't it have been easier 10 years ago to actually build Energy East? Wouldn't it have been easier to displace Russian oil and actually have kept Russia at bay because they didn't have the money to finance their war? We really have to start playing for ourselves. We really have to start playing our role in the global security, and we have to stop being petty. We need to develop the economy so that we have the world-leading economy for the world's richest country.
And a key to economic growth, you think, is pipelines, not just to the West Coast, but also, say, to Atlantic Canada, where they're importing so much oil in Atlantic Canada.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at it then from the Canadian perspective. We do not have a strategic energy reserve. Even if Alberta were to build a strategic energy reserve, we have no way to transmit that natural gas or oil, And out east, we have to go to the United States.
Yes, such great points.
You want to talk national unity? You want to talk about stability? That's how you do it.
Yeah, might solve a lot of problems, Herman. Very good. Thank you. I'm loving the call so far. 1-833-668-2577. What's the biggest issue in the country right now? Have your say on Talkback on News Radio. What is the biggest issue facing Canada right now? What's the biggest issue in Canada? We asked this a few times a year. We thought, first full week of spring, let's go with that again. The biggest issue is what? At 1-833-668-2577, 3 lines available. Wait won't be long at all. Tim in Nova Scotia. Thanks for calling, Tim.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Tim. Thank you. What do you think it is? What's the big issue?
I think it's the government.
The government? Okay.
I think they created a lot of these problems, and then they're acting like the saviors. Like I've never heard so many daft responses from some of your callers. Oh, I don't drive, so the price of gas doesn't affect me. How do you think your food gets to the grocery store? We need a government that's actually for Canadians. You know how many billions of dollars we send out of the country?
Sure do, yeah.
Like we don't have political accountability. They're the ones doing the spending. They're the ones in control, and they're not working for Canadians.
Okay, so it's in the news. It's in the news today, for example, that the federal government is going to eliminate 12,000 jobs over the next 3 years. How do you feel about that?
Well, how many jobs have they needlessly had for the past 11 years?
Hard to say.
Exactly. Like, and then your other caller about the housing and this, that, and the other thing. Well, who brought in all the immigrants? Like, I'm not against the immigration, but the mass immigration they've been doing, like, everybody seems to be pointing the fingers at other people. What about the person that has his house or the person trying to buy their house? But who brought in all these students and temporary foreign workers and given us an unemployment rate for youth of 14%?
Well, again, the youth unemployment rate is always higher than the national unemployment rate. And I think the government has recognized that it got carried away with immigration. And there were new statistics out just on Friday, I believe, that the population of Canada actually went down in the final 3 months of last year. So they reined it in a bit. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but they've been saying it for the past couple of years that immigration's been out of control. And then Mark Carney goes over and makes a sweetheart deal with India for, what, $100 million? And then again, I explained this to you the last time you called about that. That's more about commerce than it is about immigration, that meeting, right?
I said sweetheart deal. You know what I mean? I understand, but yet again, they're not focusing on the Canadian people. They're too busy jet setting around the world and not like caring about actual who's in the country because they don't care. Poor people are easy to control. The end of the story is that's what it is. I 100% believe the Canadian government wants to see people in poverty so they can control what people do.
All right. I don't know if I would go along with that, but if you believe that, Tim, fair enough. The government, he's just the catch-all, the government. Tim in Nova Scotia. Karen in Calgary is up next. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Very good, Karen. Thank you. What's the biggest issue right now?
Well, I would say housing, specifically in British Columbia. Would you go and buy a house in British Columbia if you could? No, because they're turning around and taking them from them. I don't know why nobody in Canada is talking about this, but they are expropriating everybody's land and giving it to bands that don't even exist, Indian bands, made up names.
I don't believe that's the case. Yeah, I don't believe that's the case.
Yes, it is the case. They've done it in Richmond. Now the guys are going in there trying to get a mortgage, and you can't get a mortgage because you don't own the land. You don't own your house anymore. It's now getting expropriated. Same with the expropriation of a mobile home park. They're kicking out the old people. Who's responsible? David Eby and Mark Carney and United Nations. UN UNDRIP is responsible for stealing people's property, and no one in Canada is talking about it.
Well, again, it's all over the news, the Cowichan decision. I mean, you're saying nobody's talking about it when it's been all over the news. I don't know why you would make that claim. It's been all over the news. The uncertainty that has created, and that court case is going to be appealed, right? But in the meantime, it does create great uncertainty, and it diminishes certainly the value of people's homes, whether homes are being, to your claim, expropriated and given over to First Nations bands. I haven't read anything about that.
Well, what about the mobile home park where they told everybody you got 2 years and you're getting out?
Okay, I don't know that story. I could only read so much news. Okay, I don't know the story. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay,
complete ignorance on that.
You can't know everything, Rob. It's tough.
Can't know everything. I barely know what I know. All right, Karen, thank you. Housing, and housing uncertainty because of these agreements and court cases. I could appreciate that. Is it the biggest issue in the country? Well, for Karen, it is. What about you? 1-833-668-2577. What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? 1-833-668-2577. 2577. Let's go to Sam is in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Sam. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good.
What do you think?
So, yeah, I'm going to agree with a lot of people that have already called in that housing affordability is definitely, I mean, it's hard to peg one issue, but it's definitely one of the biggest. And it's definitely, I think, the one that, aside from food prices, Canadians are feeling probably the most squeezed by every day, the cost of housing. I mean, here in Nova Scotia, most renters are spending well over 50% of their monthly salary just to have a roof over their head. But I think that an issue that maybe has led to housing affordability or unaffordability, I think that a great way to tackle that issue, especially in cities and urban centers, is with a lot more government housing. And I know that comes with a lot of stigma. And when people hear government housing, they think of like slums and ghettos and places where governments just stick the poor and, the poor people of society. But I just want to give two great examples of cities with a extremely high government housing rates. Singapore and Vienna both have really high government subsidized housing rates, or the amount of people living in government subsidized housing in those cities is extremely high. It's been extremely successful there, and they're both beautiful cities. So I think it's a great place for where government can step in and do something good. I think.
And maybe institute some best practices. There's no monopoly on a good idea. Maybe we go to Vienna and find out what they're doing there. Why is this working there? This is something like that. All right, Sam. Interesting. Housing affordability, though. Popular topic today. 1-833-668-2577. What's the biggest issue right now in Canada? Spring 2026. What's the biggest issue of all of them? This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? What is it? The cost of living, the economy, housing, healthcare, immigration, crime, public safety. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Trevor is in Guelph today. Hello, Trevor.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good, Trevor. Good to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest issue in Canada right now?
I think, now I'm in my 50s, and I remember way back when gas was like 34, 35 cents when we had our refineries. I think they should open them back up and isolate the U.S. and let them deal with their own crap. Get our gas prices down.
Getting gas prices down.
Like if we opened up our refineries again, because we shut them down because of the NAFTA agreement, then we got basically screwed in that deal. They need to open up our refineries again, keep our oil with Canadians, and let the U.S. figure out what they're going to do. Let them fight
and
the rest
more
of
of
the
the refined, make more of the refined product here.
Yeah, like they used to.
Right. I know there hasn't been a new refinery built in decades. I can't remember the exact number of refineries that we have in Canada. I think it's 6 or 7, something like that. There was one in Come By Chance, Newfoundland. I don't think that's operating anymore. You have one in St. John, New Brunswick. Right.
Yeah,
and there's, I think there's, go ahead.
There was one in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan as well. They closed it down when I think the Mulroney government was in.
I see.
Because they signed an agreement with America saying, yeah, we'll send you all the oil and you can sell it back to us at twice the cost.
I see. I know there are refineries in Quebec. I think there might be more than one around Lévis. And Sarnia has some refineries as well. right? And BC has a refinery, I believe.
Yeah, like open all the ones that they closed and let us basically be our own sovereign nation like we should.
Okay. More oil refineries. You know how difficult it would be to open an oil refinery now? Can you imagine the pushback from the environmental movement on reopening oil refineries? Right. That would be a heck of a fight.
If we get a leak in one of our pipelines going down to the States, what's the environmental risk on that? A lot more than it is opening up a refinery.
All right, Trevor, you're the second person to bring that up. Linda also brought that up in Airdrie, that we need more oil refineries. It's interesting that has become an answer today. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest with you. Sylvan Lake. Rod is in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. Hello, Rod.
Yeah, good morning, Rob. And I think I have a possible solution. And all right, we're losing jobs. So let's do like the States. We take, and your mortgage the interest on it should be tax deductible. That gets people in homes cheaper, and it gets jobs. The other thing that we should do is put a government ceiling on their tax on diesel fuel. Diesel fuel costs everybody every time it goes up. And the government rubs its hands in glee when it goes up because it's a percentage tax. They get a huge increase. So they should be able to say, okay, at this price, we stop taxing on a percentage. That's it. There is a ceiling then on the diesel fuel tax. And they don't even have to do it on the gas tax.
Then.
They should. Yeah, but cap it. Diesel costs us all. And the mortgage one is freaking obvious. And there has not been one politician ever mention that I've ever heard.
So that when I get my mortgage statement at the end of the year, and it says, this is how much interest you paid on your mortgage, that amount I should be able to deduct on my taxes, you're saying?
Absolutely. Puts people to work, factories to work, everything.
Okay. And cap the diesel price tax. Boy, the diesel, I'm worried about what that's going to mean for the economy. I was mentioning some of the diesel prices across the country today, like well north of $2 $2 a liter now for diesel.
I can remember when, and I'm out of Alberta, obviously, and an oil contractor, and I can remember when we did not work in to figure the price of diesel fuel in our bids. That's how old I am. But now it is a huge factor. It's like 30% of cost. Yeah.
I bet. I'm sure, many of the big transportation companies would have a hedging program to try and lower that price. But my gosh, $2.35 a liter around these parts for diesel right now. That has to have an impact on the cost of just about everything. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on a Monday. And you tell us, what's the big issue? What is the biggest issue right now in this country? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Calgary once more. Gary is in Calgary today. Hello, Gary.
Hello.
Hi, Gary. What's the biggest issue in Canada right now, Gary? I hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Well, I think the biggest issue is climate change and all the information that's out there about climate change. I've never believed in it, and so I've continued to research it. You mentioned a few weeks ago that you were relying on a definition by one of the news feeds to your show or to.
Well, it wasn't so much a definition as a description of climate change.
Okay.
Yeah, from Reuters. Yes.
From Reuters. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a group in Europe. It's never been mentioned in any of the items in Canada. As far as I know, I'm not sure that it's being listened to by any of the climate change believers, but they have done research on climate change statements by the IPCC, the UN, and the Liberal government. And there is so much incorrect information in there that they've written what they call the Tindale World Climate Declaration. And they basically say there is no crisis. And the group is called the Tindale Group. It's from the words climate.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a clear indication that it's the information we're getting from the government and the IPCC is incorrect. Scientific.
Incorrect. Okay. So, you mentioned what I said this is back a few months ago now. We were doing a story on it being declared, 2025 was declared the third hottest year on record. You may remember that. That was a talkback that we were doing. And this is what you mentioned. Okay. Well, this was the description in a Reuters news story that I kept circling back to during that show. The long-established consensus among the world's scientists is that climate change is real, mostly caused by humans, and getting worse. Its main cause is greenhouse gas emissions from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, which trap heat in the atmosphere. And you don't believe that?
No, and there's scientific proof that the research that they are depending on is false. It's faulty. Okay. They have let the climate people in Europe know about that, and they basically got a response saying thank you for your concern, and that was it. No.
So what makes this the biggest issue? If I could, Gary, just because we're a little tied up, what makes it the biggest issue? Because it's a lie. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's it for hour number one. Lots of issues. Climate change, not a big concern for him. What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? 1-833-668-2577. Hour number two of Talkback is coming up right after the latest breaking news on News Radio. Welcome to hour number two of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Great to be with you for another week of taking your calls on the big issues of the day. We want to know, what's the big issue? That's what we've been asking today. What is the biggest issue in Canada right now? First full week of spring 2026. What is it? Is it the war? Is it the cost of living? Is it the economy? Is it Trump? Healthcare, housing, poverty, crime, inequality, racism? What is it? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. One call about climate change, which has dropped in the polls as the months have gone by as a top concern for Canadians. We'll see if it comes roaring back as a concern that as the weather grows warmer and there will be wildfires and there will be smoky skies. But that is just one example. 1-833-668-2577 as we go to Mike in Calgary. Hello, Mike in Calgary.
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Just a couple of things from your previous caller.
Sure.
There's a book called Unsettled by Stephen Koonin that I recommend people read. This was an individual that worked in Obama's administration, and then he went on and the American Society of Physicists asked him to do an in-depth review of climate science. And the book's called Unsettled for a reason, and I just encourage people, it's a sort of a middle-of-the-road look at climate science. So,
all right.
Your other comment about the number of refineries in Canada, there's 17 that are operating.
17. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that many. Surprised.
Yeah. Quick Google search will tell you even where they're at.
Okay.
But the biggest...
Was I close? Was I close? Was I close when I said places like St. John and Lévis, Quebec, and Sarnia, and out on the West Coast? I'm not sure where they are on the West Coast.
Yeah, so there's obviously the one in Burnaby. I think there's two operating in BC. There's 5 in Alberta, 5 in Ontario. Then I think Saskatchewan has like 2. I think there's one in Manitoba. I think there's 2 or 3 on the Atlantic provinces out there. But yeah, 17 is what's operating right now.
17. All right.
Your topic of the thing, which is the biggest problem right now.
What's the biggest issue? Issue.
What's that? Yeah,
the biggest issue.
You've listed a number on your introduction of, whether it's crime, housing, affordability, you name it. There's a whole list of them. I'm going to go back and say this is all about government policy. That is our biggest issue right now, where government is not looking at these things and making effective policy to address them. There's been some hints that some things may get a little better, like the Canadian stock market's doing fairly well, but the down and dirty about what's going on, like crime, we still need bail reform. When we talk about, getting government out of the way, issuing permits, there's still a long way to go with that. Like it's not going to happen. To your comment about building an oil refinery, yeah, good luck, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that go over? Right. Yeah. I mean, if it takes already whatever it takes, some of the figures CD House says it takes 19 years to open a mine. What does it take to open an oil refinery in this climate?
Just look at how long it takes to build a pipeline, like one that's been approved.
Well, if you can,
is 10 to 12 years.
Right.
So, right. So this isn't like, and we can't look at what our consumption today is when these projects take 10 to 12 years to implement. We need people to look in the future on what that's going to be. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that says, well, oil demand's going to peak in like 2035 or 38 or whatever. It hasn't. There is no indication that it's going to peak. Like, you look at the OPEC reports, you look at all these other reports from the American Energy, and it's not going to peak. That demand is still going to grow. Our population in the world is growing. We've passed 8 billion people. So, we need our governments to look a little bit beyond today.
The next election? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I think our governments are failing us, is my
government. So government leadership. Right. Okay, you've got us off to a good start here for hour number 2. I thank you for your call. Mike in Calgary says there are 17 oil refineries. Ian in Paris, Ontario. Hello, Ian.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, Ian. Thank you for calling. What do you think the biggest issue in Canada is right now?
Well, to me, it's a combination of everything, but it's definitely affordable housing. And
affordable housing. Okay.
Yeah, and I worked at social services for 30 years. I retired in 2017. And the homelessness, I have never seen anything even remotely close to what's going on right now. Like, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. There's the last number I heard in Brantford was like 250, 500 in Oshawa. This is stats taken like 6 months ago, and
all right.
And these warming centers and whatever, it's not working.
It's not working. Sure.
No, it isn't, and it's not funny. Like this is.
I'm not laughing, sir.
This is. And I'm a pretty conservative thinker, but we are failing as a society. This is getting worse. These people that are on the street are you're seeing seniors now. You're seeing people with serious mental health issues that, their competency is questionable. And we're just doing, warming them up for a night and, the system.
Sending them out again.
And the system is so flawed. It's just, and then, you know, I'm sorry, the people in the head of the Canadian government I don't even hear them mention it because they don't even know about it because they're so in another world. It's not even funny, you know, and this is a serious problem. If you're down and out right now, you are in a heap of trouble, you know, like it's, you know, we are in a bad state right now. But, you know,
with affordability. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Like
and homelessness.
Yeah, it's got to be addressed. We better start building things, you know, because, but you know, I just don't think they're not solutions.
Doesn't seem to be a priority. Doesn't seem to be a priority for the government. Ian, we've got to go. I thank you. You raise a very important issue: homelessness and affordable housing, and what they would call deeply affordable housing. Thank you for your call. Please keep your calls coming. 1-833-668-2577. What's the biggest issue in the country right now? This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Where we are asking, what is the biggest issue in Canada right now? Pick a topic, no wrong answers. Let's get to it. Maureen in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Maureen. What do you think, Maureen? What's the biggest issue in the country? Very good, Maureen. Thank you.
Affordability. You know, with the war that Trump has created, it's affecting everyone all over the world, but for us especially, because we're importing more fruits and vegetables from Costa Rica or wherever that kind, you know, those places, and Mexico, which is good. But the thing is, our taxes, especially in Calgary, have gone up thanks to the Alberta government for school taxes. So they send their request or send it to the city. So we have to pay the Alberta school tax and then the Calgary school taxes. And I just think we have to sort of figure out how to back off on some of the taxes. Housing, for sure. If there are any, you know, empty buildings, you know, start building apartments or something like that. You know, use what you have in your own city and try to boost the affordability
the
for
supply.
people.
The supply of housing. Do you see empty buildings in Calgary that could be used as apartments?
Of course there were. Yeah, of course. A few years ago.
Just asking.
I think it was 2014, Imperial Oil moved everything out of the downtown Calgary and built, you know, like a campus in another area in urban. And so other companies have gone out of the downtown. And I know there was an initiative to actually revamp some of these office towers into apartments. And to me, I don't know how many empty buildings there are downtown, but I think that's something they should look for. Instead of, trying to expand the housing for other people who can afford, $200,000 or $500,000 to $1 million homes, concentrate on the downtown and try to make more affordable housing there.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, you're talking about converting commercial real estate to more affordable residential real estate. That's a hot topic where we are as well in the nation's capital, because there are so many older Government of Canada buildings, and with the push on in the federal government to work from home, some of those buildings actually are being converted into residential housing. Let's go to Cambridge, Ontario. Sean is there. Hi, Sean.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, I just had a little bit of a two-part here. I think it sounds a little bit obvious, but here's what I have to say about this. I think a lot of the issue has to do with how people feel. We have mental health issues. We have people that are in bad moods. And no matter what you look at, if it's mental health, if it's addictions, if it's finance, depression and morale are billions and billions of dollars of loss a year. So we're losing literally billions of dollars a year because people don't want to work as hard, because people are depressed. People don't have the confidence to carry themselves throughout the day. And I think this is one of the major factors in why what's happening is happening. And another part to this I wanted to add, because the gentleman that was one of your previous callers, he touched on a little bit of like addictions and homelessness. But I want to add to that I don't think that we should be criminalizing social problems and that we should be criminalizing mental health or addictions issues. So people act out desperately because they're lower income. You're already prone to addictions. You're prone to mental health issues just from being lower income. And there is clustered research that proves that beyond a doubt. So I think that taking other approaches other than criminalizing social problems and the runoff of the major issues in our city, along with, how people feel as well. I think that just came to my mind, and I wanted to add that to your show, and thank you.
Mental health crisis, stress, the impact it has, as you say, I would call it on like productivity in the economy. If people are stressed out, if they're burnt out, if they're mentally wiped out, they're not going to be as productive at work. They might not even go to work. They might not be employable. It's such a great point that you make. I agree with you that we shouldn't criminalize addiction either. Addiction should be, in my opinion, treated as a public health problem, a health problem, and not a problem for the criminal justice system. We're on the same wavelength, I think, there, Sean. Thank you. Keep them coming, folks. Monday Talkback, what's the biggest issue? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? Harpreet in Calgary is going to weigh in on that one today. Hello, Harpreet.
Hello, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for calling. What would you say?
Oh, welcome. Well, the biggest problem we have currently is Canadians' taxpayer dollar is not spent for Canadians. And the whole responsibility lies on the three tiers of government: municipal, provincial, and federal. These are elected officials with no consequences of not doing their job properly, have zero consequences. They have pocketed millions in pension pay increases. How? I don't even understand. People work for 40 years in Canada and they don't get a pension. And these people who are elected on a temporary basis, which is less than a contract, amass immense amount of pensions, which is being a biggest burden in tax dollar. And these people spend money as if there's no tomorrow. How come they cannot budget like a household which is earning $60,000? And at the same time, despite having so much money taken out of the people's pocket in the form of taxes, they have completely failed in providing the basic necessities of the life, which should be heat and water. And people can't even afford to pay heat bill.
Right.
Oil.
Right.
We're rich
so
in
what would
water.
you like to? Okay. So what would you like to see happen then, Harpreet? If those are the problems and that's the big issue, like
yeah,
terrible spending decisions by politicians, what would you like to see happen then? What would you do?
I would like to see, for example, whosoever ever says my agenda is to cut the pension should cut the pension. They should start with themselves. Forget about what other members say. I don't want pension. I don't want pension. I'm running for election. It's a contract basis. And secondly, there should be an accountability clause in every single election. Every single election. A doctor who fails to perform the proper medical procedures, they have consequences. They have insurance.
Yes.
They have to pay for insurance if they fail to meet it. Why shouldn't a politician who's running should be running a $10 billion worth of insurance policy? So if he doesn't deliver, that insurance policy pays.
Oh, I
Why
see.
not?
Okay. I'm not sure how feasible that is. I mean, in Alberta, for example, where you are, Harpreet, they have, recall. You can petition for a recall. And then if you get enough signatures, you could have a recall election. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, recall is a very, very good thing. It's a beautiful thing. But the problem is people do not have enough resources or money to go after politicians who are funded by a federal tax dollar and the supporters of them, the people who donate the money. And everybody knows who funds the elections. In Alberta, the elections are funded by the oil companies.
Well, for the most part, donations from big companies, big donations from individuals, big donations from unions, most of that is banned. Now, we don't have the same kind of big money in our elections as we do in, say, the United States, as they do in the United States. But I think the theme of your gripe, Harpreet, and what you think is the biggest issue is the lack of accountability. If poor decisions are made, what's the price to pay for that? Some might say the election. You can always vote them out during the election. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? Harpreet says it's the lack of accountability. What about you? We are asking what's the biggest issue in Canada right now. Lots of ideas on offer. Guy is in Calgary. Thanks for waiting, Guy. You're up next.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for calling. What would you say, Guy?
Well, I think it's been our leadership the last 11 years. Yeah.
Okay.
You're supposed to ask me why.
Well, why do you say that, Guy? The leadership of the last 11 years. You're talking about federal politics, the Liberals?
Well, who's been in charge the last 11 years? And I'm not blaming the Liberals, but it's just been the people that have been in charge. And our country has really gone downhill in the last 11 years.
All right, fair enough. Give me some examples. Like what do you think have been the problems? What problems have there been over the last 11 years, in your opinion?
Immigration.
Immigration?
And too many at one time,
Sure.
And our education system couldn't handle it. Our hospitals couldn't handle it. Our doctors, to get a doctor, can't handle it. And it just seems like too many scandals too, right? Like the ArriveCan scandal, like the two guys that are working in the garage.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's a lot of money.
Contracting scandals, specifically having to do with high tech. Yeah, sure.
Yes, you know what I mean, and just it's just been our leadership the last 11 years
at the federal level.
At the federal level, and then like I'm from Alberta, and I would love to stay in Canada, but I don't think I can.
Well, where would you go?
Because I'll be in Alberta and we'll separate.
Oh, you'll be in Alberta and you'll separate. Okay, you've become a supporter of independence for Alberta because of the way things have. You are absolutely okay.
Because I mean,
did you ever feel that way before?
I remember. I'm 63 years old. I remember.
Yes.
I went to a little town hall to vote when I was 18, and my dad had a big satellite dish. And when I was driving there, they already announced who won the prime minister.
They forecasted the winner. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that drives people in the West crazy. I understand that. Okay, leadership over the last 11 years. I will say for most of last year, immigration was the top 5 issue in this country. There's no doubt about it. It was rising through the ranks. To Guy's point, people believe too many people in too short a time, putting us straight on social services, making for a very difficult labor market, especially for young people. Questions about social cohesion, integration. The Carney government is trying to fix that. It is trying to hit the brakes on immigration. It has touted some progress on that. And as I mentioned earlier, StatsCan came out with population numbers just a few days ago. The overall population of Canada went down by 100,000 people in the final 3 months of last year. According to some of the recent polls, immigration is still a top 10 issue, but it's fallen out of the top 5. It's not a top 5 issue these days, just according to the polls. But for Guy, it's a big issue. Joe in Nova Scotia. Thanks for waiting. Joe, up next. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Joe.
I'd ask you how you doing, but we'll skip over that question.
That's fine.
One of the biggest things that I see in this country as a problem is opioids.
Oh, yes.
You know, this affects basically our younger, like whatever gen they are, but coming up through life, these people need support in terms of getting off this stuff. And I mean, this is, you know, the next generation of Canadians. And I think we saw like 20,000 deaths in a year from this stuff. Like that's, in terms of, and I got to give props to all your callers. I think you've had a really great show today. Listen to you all the time. But I really would like to, like, this is our next generation, and you know, they need this stuff off the streets, and they need some way to make changes. Like you can't just eliminate this stuff out of your life. There needs to be some place to fill the vacuum, I guess, that would deal with that. We can't have our next generations dying and dying and dying.
According to the government's own statistics, Joe, according to the government's own statistics, it's about 21 people a day, every single day, dying from opioid-related drug overdoses. And then there are those who are rushed to the hospital and live, and that's about another 16 people a day. Imagine the strain that has. 13,000 people in 1 year were rushed to the emergency room for opioid abuse.
I know. 13,000.
It's crazy. 13,000.
This is our next generation, and I gotta say, I don't have a solution for it, but I would love, safe sites, all of that stuff. I'm not sure that it's working. You know, and
people are questioning that.
Like I say, I mean, I don't have a solution.
I know. Well, there are things being floated out there, you know, much more emphasis on treatment and recovery, and even mandatory rehab has been floated. But you're right, it is a big issue. 50,000 people have been killed in this country from opioid overdoses. The vast majority of them, you were right on this too, the vast majority of them are young men before they even hit 40 years old. Thank you for your call. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's the biggest issue in Canada right now? Let's go to Cy up next in Calgary. Hello, Cy.
Yes, good afternoon to you, Rob. I've been listening to all the callers. They all have very, very valuable points. But I think it boils down to policies, you know, and you can say it's the government, but you can point fingers at everybody and anybody. But I think it's the policies within Canada. Canada is a beautiful country for both people who have taken birth here and also for people that have migrated here. I've been here since 1973. A lot of changes, as you can appreciate, but policies meaning for better schooling, getting education, for proper education with all the things that have been going on in the media for, medium-sized classes, facilitating teachers, giving them a good, financial aid as far as their wages, the medical system, which has gone to the shits. Everybody knows that. Social structure, meaning the drugs abuse and all this. So I think it's just the policies that we adopt. And I think if I may expand on further from there, it's just the infrastructure. Like, if we as a nation stood together, we don't have to call immigrants over at the volume that we've been calling. We should look after the citizens that are here from all these aspects that I've outlined earlier. When we talk about, let's say, housing, for example, affordable housing. So all these inflationary factors that have come over the last, 40, 45 years, it's all due to bad policy decisions. You can say the government because they make the policies, but, we need to build in better infrastructures for local economy, local businesses being funded and supported by government so that we can grow an infrastructure within the economy.
Okay. Thank you, Cy, for having your say. Let's go to Judith in central Alberta today. Hello, Judith.
Hi. Thank you
Judith.
for taking my call. Okay.
You're welcome.
I agree with so many people that housing is probably the number one thing. I mean, opioid addiction, that can be solved by growing a few poppies in your yard. But anyways, let's go back to the problem, the root of the problems.
Right.
If I moved to the States or any other country, I would never expect to be allowed to be a landlord to own other people's homes. I would never expect to be an owner of a home, of your home, or anybody else's home. I think we need laws against owning other people, and another part of it is why should you or anybody else have to pay? If I'm the landlord, why should you pay my mortgage? That shouldn't be allowed. And another part,
I'm a little confused as to what you're advocating for here. Are you saying we should just get rid of like private rental accommodation? People shouldn't be allowed to be landlords anymore? And rent out properties that they own?
Yeah. Well, basically, but
basically, okay.
Well, yes. Hold on, but the root of the problem goes back to the calendar. Every February we just missed a February, 28 days. So any proprietor or entrepreneur or part-time worker or such people like that only have 28 days to pay the next set of bills. Okay, most of the months, 7 of the 12 months, have 31 days. So 31 minus 28 is 3. That's 3. 3 is 10%. 3 days less than most of the months. That's 10%. The corporations and the landlords and so many other people are making 10% more. And so then those people
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that, and I'm not sure what the solution is unless you want to pass a law and give February 31 days. Judith, I'm going to move along. I'm actually going to stop here, and then we'll fit Ryan and Joan in, and I think we'll call it a day. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. What's the biggest issue in the country? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's the biggest issue in the country right now? That's what we've been asking today here on Talkback. And a lot of response. Let's go to Ryan up next in Calgary. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Ryan. Good to hear from you. What would you say, Ryan?
Yeah, Rob, I'm a first-time caller from here in Alberta. Seems like a lot of Alberta callers on the show today. Seems like there's lots to be said, but But yeah, I'm just on the road, Rob, and my thoughts are Canadians need to take a good, hard look in the mirror at, why we've got such an abundance of primary resources, and yet private investment is sitting on the sidelines. We're not seeing international investment. We're not seeing global investors. We've got resources that the world wants, and yet we're not seeing that investment into our country. And I think as Canadians, we need to ask ourselves, why is that happening? Is it government policy? Is it that the approval process has become so onerous that companies just don't want to invest in our country? When Canada has one LNG terminal built so far, and yet we've got such an abundance of natural gas, that we should be feeding to these LNG terminals. Why do we just have one LNG facility? And, why is the world choosing to buy their oil through the Strait of Hormuz when countries like Canada represent, a stable and reliable source for this product, and yet they still choose not to invest into our country?
Yeah, I think as you ask your own questions, I think you're answering your own questions as you were speaking there, Ryan. It's all of that, isn't it?
Well, I think so, Rob, and I think I think Canadians need to ask ourselves. I'm all about sustainable development, Rob. I really am, but I feel like the process for these mega projects has become so onerous that private investors just don't want to get involved anymore. When you've got companies like, Kinder Morgan, who essentially walked away from the Trans Mountain Pipeline years ago, only for our federal government to fly in and buy it up. To me, that's a really sad picture. Why is government having to buy up these projects because private investors don't want to get involved anymore? That's a really sad story, I believe. And, I've heard a lot of callers, they talk about affordability, and I agree. It's probably first and foremost the biggest issue right now, but there's two ways to solve affordability. And I'm no economist, Rob, but, we can focus on how do we lower the cost of goods, or we need to figure out as a country, how are we going to generate more wealth? And, how are we going to generate more revenue? How are we going to generate more taxes? And unless we're getting major projects approved and built, I don't feel like Canada's going to see any of that wealth. And frankly, it's sitting on the sidelines. So how are we going to fix this as a country? To me, that's the biggest issue at hand for Canadians right now.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to Joan in Calgary. We don't have a lot of time, Joan, just about 60 seconds or so. But if you're still with me, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Joan. Go ahead, Joan. Very quickly.
Hi. I just want to say that a lot of our issues have to deal with crime and opioids, the homeless people. There's too many homeless people. It's unaffordable. Even groceries are unaffordable. People are, have $200 left in their paycheck, and they're barely surviving.
Yes. Affordability, basic affordability, paying for the basics. Great stuff. Thank you for all of your calls. Busy from top to bottom today on Talkback. I hope it's that way all week because we'll be discussing a lot of big issues with your help. Until then, the latest breaking news on a busy news day today. That's coming up next. This is News Radio